Have you ever met one of those people who just can't be stopped? It's like they're unstoppable.
Yeah, I have.
Me too.
What's their mystique?
Nothing stops these people.
Don't stop.
Welcome to Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso. You're about to meet some of the most amazing people.
Stop. Don't stop.
They've accomplished their goals despite insurmountable odds. They beat adversity, physical hardship, and traumatic events, and emerged triumphantly. They're people just like you and me, and they're winners. Are you unstoppable? Here's Frankie to show you how.
Hello there, and welcome to this special edition of Mission Unstoppable. It is the International Women's Day show, and I'm so happy to be here with everybody. You know, International Women's Day 2017 is asking women around the world to be bold for change. They're calling on the masses, and they're calling on you to help forge a better working world, a more gender-inclusive world. And last year, organizations and individuals around the world supported the Pledge for Parity campaign. And they committed to helping women and girls achieve their ambitions, challenge their conscious and unconscious biases, and call for gender-balanced leadership. Well, today, the World Economic Forum is predicting that the gender gap will not close entirely until 2186. That is so far away. Oh my goodness. This is way too long to wait. And so around the world, the International Women's Day is an important catalyst and vehicle for driving greater change for women and moving closer to gender parity. So let me introduce you to our illustrious guest today. I chose these women because they're truly international, but more importantly to me, they represent courage and boldness and leadership, bravery, and heart. With us today, she's not with us right now. Diane Lang was supposed to be with us today. She's a human rights activist from South Africa. She is always fighting for injustice and the underdog. She's the author of Saving Mandela's Children and Shattered. She's won no less than 6 humanitarian awards, and today she is battling a very rare form of cancer. She continues to fight to free South Africans who have been incarcerated unfairly, and this evening it's a little after 10 o'clock in Elizabethtown, where she lives, and she's just taken some medication. She's not feeling that great, and so she's going to be listening in and cheering us all on. So, hi, Diane. Efrat Sopher is with us. She's an Israeli-born lawyer, Middle East and foreign policy analyst. She lives in London now. She specializes in Israel and Iran policies. She speaks 5 languages. She's a mother for 2 small children. She recently submitted her PhD papers after a benign brain tumor held her up for a little bit. And yes, we just know we will be calling her Dr. Sopher very soon. Sandra Beck is here. She runs an empire. Beck Multimedia. She's a president. She's an author, coach, speaker, radio host, entrepreneur, and philanthropist, also a mother of 2 boys, and a caregiver to an aging father. And CieCie Nguyen, she's with us. She's the author of Shock Peace, the first book written in English about the communists invading Saigon and one of the famed Vietnamese boat people. CieCie was 13 years old when North Vietnam invaded her country. In the south, they brutally murdered her countrymen, stole millions from bank accounts, and enslaved many of the men into re-education camps. And today, CieCie is the mother of 4 boys. She works as a pharmacist and lives in Canberra, Australia. So welcome, everybody, to this very special edition of International Women's Day, Be Bold for Change. I'm so thrilled that you guys are all with me today.
I'm so intimidated by everybody. So it's just amazing, Frankie, that you could bring these wonderful women together from around the world.
I'm just really thrilled that they all said yes. So I'm gonna start with CieCie. I haven't spoken to CieCie since last November. She came to talk about her book Shock Peace. It was quite an education reading that book. How are you today, CieCie?
I'm great. Thank you, Frankie, and thank you, ladies, also for letting me joining you guys for this kind of wonderful opportunity to talk and to be on the International Women's Day.
You know, you are a pharmacist. You work in, a profession that I guess it might be equal. Is it equal in Australia as far as men and women taking that role?
I guess so, but I think being a female pharmacist, we're not that business-minded like the men. We are sort of more of the domestic in the kind of running the pharmacy. So not many women's pharmacists only pharmacy. So more or less equal, but not as equal.
Right. And so the pay wouldn't be equal.
The pay, actually, no, the pay is equal, but I think the role. Sometimes the role. Yeah.
Okay, I get it. So, also along with today's Be Bold for Change, it's also looking at if women didn't go to work today, if women weren't represented today, Efrat, what would that look like in your household?
If women not going to work, like today, like I think traditionally in my country, many women wouldn't be able to go to work. They were actually to stay at home, having a domestic role, raising children, and still many were still like that in Vietnam, back in the faraway country.
Right. But today is a special day because they're asking women, they're telling women they want the world to know what it's like if women weren't present. So let's go to London.
I'm just going to jump in here and say nothing would get done. If women weren't present, nothing would get done.
This is true.
That's true. I think women more or less, I think we are a silent decisive maker. We tend to have that kind of decisive a movement rather than men in some way, but I think men, they like to be in control.
Like CieCie, if it wasn't CieCie in your case, if it wasn't for your mother, your family would not have survived. It wouldn't have left Vietnam. She arranged for the trip for the boat. She arranged for the trip to take the family. Her father, just couldn't even do it anymore. And so your mom, that woman, she was, spearheaded the whole escape for your family and freedom. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's wonderful. My mom, she's the bravest person that I have ever known because she after the war ended, she just came out of her closet and she worked and she earned money, and then she arranged for the escape by all that arrangement through under the communist eyes. And it's just wonderful that she led us to freedom, to search for the freedom, and we're here. Without her, we wouldn't be here because we would be still staying in Vietnam and suffered like the rest of the people over that time.
Yes, for sure. I'm going to go over to Efrat now in London. Efrat, you're the mom for 2 boys. You're very, very busy. I mean, you've got so much on your plate.
Yes.
If it wasn't for you, what would happen in your world, at work and at home?
Well, at home, I feel like I am, for once, the minority. Growing up, I grew up around many powerful, caring, influential women. For example, my mother, who's been my biggest kind of inspiration and example of how a woman can achieve in a man's world, and the prime importance of education, which is what my mother instilled in me. And I feel that kind of the power of education has taught me that regardless of gender, when you show your achievement kind of with education, it equips you to do anything. So, for example, in the foreign policy world is still largely dominated by men. Mm-hmm. And I think that by having an education, by striving towards kind of bending over backwards to achieve my PhD, I hope, think, make sure that my voice is heard, especially when you want to do it in a feminine way, when you don't want to act like a man and to be aggressive, and when you just want to be yourself. I think having that education as a woman helps a lot. And
well, I think you've got 2 things going for you and against you. One is that you're very attractive as a woman, and so men will look at that and either respect you for that because pretty people get ahead, or she's just pretty, but what does she know? Right?
Yes.
Because they tend to do that to us, right? They pat you on the head and go, "You're cute. Okay,
Absolutely.
Move over."
Absolutely. And they typecast you and think that you're just kind of there to look pretty, and whatever you say doesn't make kind of much of a difference. Whereas, and I think meeting women who are kind of who are an inspiration, kind of like Sandra Beck, I may say, Sandra.
Yes.
Who, Sandra is a beautiful, tall blonde who is very articulate and very smart, and kind of uses her femininity in such a beautiful way. And I think kind of the more women are confident to act in this way, the better it is for all women.
Agreed. Sandra, what do you want to say to that?
I was just going to say that sounds so much better than, they call me iPad Barbie because, being like, a tall blonde with big boobs and big hair and a big smile in technology hasn't, it's opened doors for me, but it hasn't always, I've had to really work hard. I've had to work harder than my male cohorts to get the same respect. It's taken me longer. But the one thing that I love about all the women on the show today is that we are all feminine. We're pretty women. We're dressed up, and we look good and we look female. We're not trying to be male in a male world.
Right. Yes, exactly. I agree with that.
Yes, that I agree to that too. Thank you, Sandra. we don't want it to masculine, but we like to contribute to the everything to the world, just like men. We are intelligent as they are. Of course.
That's correct. Exactly. We're going to go to a break, and we have a little commercial coming up. But when we come back, let's talk about the biases that we felt as women and what we have done or seen done to address inequality in the workplace and just for our gender, I guess, in general. Yeah. And how we show bias to other women too, because we're not always very kind to other ladies. So stick around. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We will be right back with CieCie Nguyen, Sandra Beck, Efrat Sopher, and I'm Frankie Picasso.
That's right. Don't stop listening. Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Stop.
It's words you never heard.
Did you know that besides home and work, Americans spend more time at the mall than anywhere else? There are 50,000 shopping malls in the United States alone. The Mall of America, located between Minneapolis and St. Paul, is the largest in the world, with more than 500 stores. What's a word for a person who is a compulsive shopper? An oniomaniac. Studies have shown that women will buy more if they hear their heels clicking on the floor. So designers often use hard flooring in hallways. Of course, the stores want customers to spend all their coopity-coop. That's another word for money. Well, I gotta run. There's only one more shopping day until tomorrow. My husband said if I don't quit shopping so much, he would leave me. Lord, I'm gonna miss that man.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
A study done by the University of North Carolina found that Americans are not only eating more, we are eating more often. From 1977 to 2006, the number of daily meals and snacks increased from 5 to 7. The study also cited that we are consuming 570 more calories per day than we were in the late 1970s. The meal portions have stabilized in recent years, but the total number of calories consumed is rising. Eating 5 to 7 small, healthy meals throughout the day, instead of eating just 3 large meals, keeps your metabolism revved up and keeps your hunger away. But the operative word here is small. Choose fresh fruit, vegetables, and low-calorie nutritious food for your meals, along with daily exercise. I'm Annette Hammond. To hear other fitness and weight loss tips, visit our website at AnnetteHammond.com.
And we're back. It's Mission Unstoppable special edition for International Women's Day. And before we went to our break, we were talking, I said we would come back and we would talk about any biases and inequalities that you have felt, each of you, and maybe what you have hopefully, not given to other women. I'm sure nobody in this esteemed panel would have done that. But I remember, I'm probably the oldest of you all, and I remember going for a job, and I really wanted to sell cars. I don't know why. I just really wanted to sell cars. And I was told I couldn't do it because I was a woman. And that just went against everything. I mean, this was, 40 years ago maybe. But it just goes against everything that, I stood for. And I'm going to give kudos out to my dad right now because love you, Dad. He was, the guy who said, you can do anything you want. You can be anything you want, regardless of you being a woman. So that set me up, and I said, yeah, I can do anything. Doesn't matter. Yeah. And I ended up managing a world kickboxing champion in the end, but I couldn't sell cars. So, because I was a girl. Yeah. And really what it was, the manager told me that, he was afraid that I would sell more cars because I was a girl and it wouldn't be fair to the guys. Anybody want to chime in?
Wow, what a bad businessman. I'd put you right out front in a bikini if I were trying to sell cars.
Well, I think I've had that before when I went to sell insurance. And I think what it is that when people are on commission, and I said, then put me on a salary. I don't have to be on commission. They don't have to know anything. The guys don't need to know anything. But yeah, I think you're right. I would have done really well. And I think I would have, had a good time doing it and sold a lot of stuff. So it was unfortunate. Things have, gotten better today. I think a little bit.
No, I'm going to buzz in and say it depends on the industry you're in, and it depends on the environment you're in and the part of the world you're in. Because in technology, I went for a long time as SJ. I used my initials, SJ. And so people didn't know whether SJ was a boy or a girl. And so everything was done. This was prior to, all this video conferencing. And I cannot tell you how many people, did like a spit take when I would come on the screen, looking like I do, and they'd be like, you're SJ. I'm like, no, I had a head transplant. Like, yes, I'm SJ. The same person that you worked with yesterday and felt good about, now all of a sudden, because I'm a woman, because I'm American, it's very different. So I would say it's not as emancipated as one would think.
What's it like in Australia, CieCie? What's it like there for women? Do you feel like there's a gender equality there, or have you ever, been prejudiced or biased against for being female?
Because I am in health, and there's many pharmacists as well as doctors, specialists in health. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I encountered the same problem with in technology, in computing science. I think it's because of the stereotype. People are stereotype women as being feminine, as being submissive, as being less intelligent or something like that. So when they come to a higher sort of intelligent required field like technology, computing, they're surprised that we can be as smart as they are, more or less of what they're thinking of who we should be rather than who we are. I think that's the problem. So if we continue to show to people that we can be both feminine, intelligent, decision maker, and we're all in one.
There you go.
That's right. Yeah.
I like that. Efrat, what about you? Have you encountered it?
I agree with CieCie completely about kind of being able to be that package. As a lawyer, for example, I found that even in I'd have to say it's become quite egalitarian in the UK, the law industry. But some of the women lawyers that I encountered were a lot more discouraging and a lot less helpful to a young lawyer woman starting out. rather than the men, for example, rather than the more old-fashioned men who were actually very welcoming and gave decent work. So that shattered my stereotype in a particular way, where the women were actually more difficult than the men. And whereas I was led to believe that women raise each other up.
Right.
It's a woman's role, I think, to mentor younger women and to help them along the path that kind of the older woman has kind of.
You would think, because women are supposed to be the nurturing one, but they're not. So why aren't women helpful to other women? What is it? Why are we so jealous of other women? Why can't we help other people?
It's competition. I think it goes back to the very nature of the competition for a man. And, go ahead and throw rocks at me if you want. But, I think women originally, if they got a good husband, they got a good life. You married into the life you wanted. So the competition to be better or prettier or thinner or bigger boobs or whatever it is, caused a culture of women to compete for men's attention. And I think that kind of transfers over into the workplace through competition for jobs, because I have found, and I would love to ask the other girls, I have found that once I go into an organization and they get over, kind of how I look and that I don't fit the typical nerdy computer woman, once they get over that, the guys pretty much fall in line, and most of the girls fall in line. But then there's a couple like nerdy men and women who just will never give me the time of day. They'll just say, you got that job because of your pretty face, or you got that job because, the president thinks you're cute, or whatever. There's always
Have they spoken to you yet?
Yeah. I
you're
know.
Scary. You're scary.
Well, I do get scary, but I wasn't scary when I was little. I've gotten scarier as I've gotten older.
Okay.
I used to just smile and try not to make anybody mad.
Can I say?
Yes.
Can I say something? Can I say something, Frankie? But
Yes.
I do believe that our look, there's a little bit, of it has a little bit of helpful factor in there, because I think people appreciating beauty, or like looking at a flower, you can just say, oh, it's a beautiful flower, it's a beautiful plant. We tend to look at things a little bit biased there. So I reckon our look does help. But of course, beyond that, you got to prove your ability to do your job, not just your look.
That's true.
But I do believe the appearance, the look. Like when you are looking at a shabby clothes person, you would just have a little bit of prejudice there, saying, "Oh, gee, she could or he could look better having a decent shirt on or something."
Yes.
I think the look there's something to the first
there is something
glance.
to that. Yes. Yeah. I think it opens the door.
You got to prove it. You got to prove yourself to be better than that.
But okay, let's look at your culture for a moment, because we're looking at women helping women. In the Vietnamese culture, typically will a woman help another woman succeed, or are they as competitive as the American women?
Oh. Well, I think should like all women in the world, I don't think we are different. The more well, if you're beautiful, if you're smart, then you should become bit separated from the rest, of course, especially if you're marrying into somebody that rich or powerful or handsome, then other women would just say, oh, she had to have something or did something to him or poison or look.
I see.
They can't believe that you have the ability to achieve what you can achieve.
Right.
And that's jealousy. Exactly like what Sandra just said. No different.
How long did you live in Israel for?
I lived in Israel till I was 8, but I go forth for work all the time.
Okay, so you know how Israeli women are, and Israeli culture. The women are just as hard ass as the guys, and they
definitely.
They love to argue. But you're expected to join the army just like a guy at 17. You're going to go, and so there's no difference there, male or female. I mean, sure, the women are very beautiful, but so there's a difference like that. But
they look prettier. Yeah,
they look pretty, right? But they look prettier in a uniform with a gun. That's about it. They're still going to have that gun.
Yeah, exactly. But they can be fighter pilots. They can be in combat units. They can be they can do almost everything that men can do.
Right.
But what has been interesting is for example, kind of in the international relations world, where, I'm seen as an absolute equal when I go kind of in a work setting, which is great. I'm slightly, one could be more polished than the other women there. Some of the women, bless them, look more, how could I put it? Embrace
rough?
the masculine look. Yes.
Okay.
Not many women kind of embraced kind of their femininity in that way.
Right.
And I think it could also be quite disarming. So when you're, for example, speaking to, a traditionally Middle Eastern man, for example, they don't quite know what to do with you. So when you present your credentials, kind of the university you're at, that you're doing a PhD, they can't typecast you as, like a dumb bimbo. So it's a nice kind of disarming weapon to have, which is good. And you can see the looks. So the Western men have no problem with me, and kind of even, find it like a fun way to become friends almost. But I've found that not all, of course, but some of the Middle Eastern men don't quite know which box to put me in, which is very interesting.
That is very interesting. Okay. Sandra Beck. Anything to add to that before we go to our break?
Well, I just was going to say that, Efrat is adorable, and I can see why, she's very approachable, especially in her industry. So I can see how she would do well. But I've had the same thing with Middle Eastern and Asian men. They don't know where to look. Sometimes they're shorter than me and they just look at my boobs.
We're going to a break on that. We'll be right back, and hopefully she's uplifted. Sit down.
That's right. Don't stop listening. Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Stop.
It's words you never heard.
Man cannot live by bread alone. He must have his peanut butter. Peanut butter is a pate of childhood, and it's not just for kids, as dogs love it too. Last night I gave my dog a pill hidden in peanut butter. What's a word for a messy concoction that helps the medicine go down? Sliver sauce. Mice apparently prefer peanut butter to cheese when it comes to luring them into the trap. But there are even more practical uses for peanut butter. Peanut butter contains natural oils, which makes it perfect for removing all kinds of sticky things, like gum stuck in your shoe or in your hair. What's a word for the fear of peanut butter sticking to the roof of your mouth? Arachnophobia. And according to Barry Goldwater, if you don't mind smelling like peanut butter for 2 or 3 days, peanut butter is a darn good shaving cream.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
Weightlifting builds bone and strengthens muscles. Using proper form is extremely important to get the best results, but also to prevent injury. A common injury when lifting weights improperly is shoulder impingement. This condition is closely related to rotator cuff tendonitis and shoulder bursitis. The rotator cuff muscles encase the shoulder joint, and when injured, they swell. Typical symptoms of impingement syndrome include difficulty reaching up behind the back, pain with overhead use of the arm, and weakness of shoulder muscles. If you are experiencing any of these symptoms, get checked out by a doctor. Most importantly, take time to lift weights properly. Get good instruction and make sure you're not lifting weight that is too heavy. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond, keeping you healthy, happy, and fit.
Okay, it's your host, Frankie Picasso, and it's a special edition of Mission Unstoppable Radio. We're going around the world for International Women's Day. CieCie Nguyen is with us from Australia. Efrat Sopher is with us from London. Sandra Beck is with us from the USA, and I'm here from Canada representing that contingent. The United Nations Global Goals set last year, 2016, as the Year of the Woman, and they are hoping by 2030 that we will have gender, parity. But I wanted to ask you guys about violence against women. Have any of you ever experienced a form of physical or mental violence against you, or sexual, any type?
I have. I took my ex-husband to court because he punched me in the head in front of my kids and my dad. And that was actually after we were divorced. And
wow.
I think domestic violence is something that I never recognized until it happened to me. And people told me before, hey, you know what, the name calling, the insulting, the financial abuse, things like that are all forms of abuse. But, I was so conditioned to think that somebody had to punch you or somebody had to really hurt you before it could be identified as domestic violence. And it was only when it happened to me, and nobody was more surprised than me. I couldn't believe what had happened, and I could see now, going back 8 years and looking back at things, going, okay, now I see all the signs, but I really didn't think any of that applied to me because I was educated, because I was tall, because I was affluent. All these things that don't fit what people think is the typical domestic violence, profile until it happened to me. And it was a good year after the incident, and there were incidents that led up to it, that it was really hard for me to accept that I was part of this group. And that was hard for me because I always looked at women who were subject to domestic violence as powerless. And I thought, oh, well, they're powerless because of economics, because of education, because of lifestyle, because of this, because of that. And it was really eye-opening to me to go, wow, I guess, it really doesn't discriminate by age or sex or color or economic status. And that was a big eye-opener for me.
Yeah, I had the same experience. And when you're an intelligent woman, it's very hard to talk about it. You don't want to talk about it because it's so embarrassing. How could that possibly have happened to me, of all people, right? Of all people. But it's so important to talk about it because everybody, when it happens, they stay isolated. And so women need to talk about it so that other women know what it is. Like you said, you weren't even sure what it was. You didn't even know because you thought it had to be worse than it was.
Yeah, I thought he needed to knock my head off or have
exactly.
And, be like what we see on the television or the internet, and it's really not.
No. CieCie, did you have something to say to that?
You're welcome to ask Sandra a question. What you were surprised because you couldn't think that could have happened to you, and then you were surprised because of their strength. You're powerless because of their strength that you cannot fight back, or you were just afraid of the fighting that could make you get you down to is it the strength, the power, or you're surprised because he just hit you. He had that, he had that I don't know, like just hit somebody like that, like you who had that intelligence, that look. Is that the surprise, or is it the strength that surely make you feel powerless?
No, it was. There was a whole bunch of things that made me feel kind of stupid and powerless. Number one was, how could I let the relationship go this far with kids, and not stop it sooner? Then there was the whole thing of, how could I have not seen it coming? It boiled over 10 years. It wasn't like, the domestic violence started right away. So it was long and slow coming. I'm so smart and educated. How could I have not seen it coming? Though that was
you were the frog simmering in the pot.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And then I was
the water
really
got hotter and hotter.
surprised someone would hit me. Nobody's hit me since like the 6th grade. Maybe my brothers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
when
boys
we
aren't
were
supposed to
little.
hit girls.
Yeah, so it was surprise all around. And then I was really surprised because I was really surprised that my ex-husband would actually do that. And I know there were conditions that led up to it that I'm not going to get into on here. But the whole thing was just a big old shock to me. And it was a great wake-up call to realize that it doesn't discriminate and it can happen to anyone.
And then it's just, I think so it's more or less of the mentality rather than the physical strength that you feel hurt by it.
Yes, I think so. Efrat, you had a question for Sandra.
I had a question for Sandra. Yes, Sandra, was it, I mean, it was kind of beyond awful in its own right, but do you feel that it was your maternal instinct that it happened in front of your boys that made, it must have made it. Did it make you want to do something about it even more? I mean, it must have been beyond horrific that it happened in that way.
My younger one saw it, Zachary. My older one had run to the car because he was afraid. And I think it was more a silent, sad recognition that I had to do something to stop this, which is why, the police got involved, the restraining order, all those things got involved. If my kids hadn't been there and my dad, there's a good chance I would have done nothing. I would have just chalked it up to a bad day, if I really am honest with myself.
Wow.
And were the police responsive?
Yeah, they were responsive, and they interviewed the kids. They did everything they were supposed to, and of course I thought the judge ruled fairly. And it wasn't something. I know there are women out there that do these things to be punitive. I did it because I needed to stop an escalating situation, and I really didn't know what else to do at that point. Which is funny because I'm combat trained. I've worked with the military. I've worked in the gun community for many years, so it's not like I couldn't defend myself, but I needed to put a stop to something that was like a cancer growing in our family, and I needed it to stop. And I didn't know how to raise my boys to be good men if they saw that, they experienced that, like, what does that teach them? So yeah, it was a very hard decision for me to make, to bring it public, because I didn't want our families, everything out there. And then I realized, putting our family out there has helped a lot of other women in my sphere of influence. So I'm convinced I did the right thing, but had my kids not been there and my dad, I probably wouldn't have done anything.
One of the things that happened to me when he hit me was I didn't hit back, and I think I didn't hit back because honest to God, I thought if I do, I'm going to kill him. Like, I will just let loose, and it would just be the end all. There was so much rage there, so I always held back from it because I was worried about that. But who knows? Maybe that's
wonderful,
in my head.
Frankie. That's wonderful for you to be able to help back, because it takes a lot of strength to be able to just step back and be walk away. That's terrific, to have that strength, the determination. That's wonderful.
I didn't want my kids involved. I did not want, especially didn't want my older son, who could have got between us, involved, because they had, he wanted to do things that are if he had hit him and got a record or got arrested, he wouldn't have been able to do the things that he wanted to do in his life. And so, it was important that things not escalate and that we could just get away, and that would be the end of it.
Right.
Yeah.
I know in my culture that a lot, women were hit, was domestic violence. It's very common.
Oh,
very
really?
Common. Yeah. Back then, and I think still now, women, especially even in Australia, some women came and but they never go to the authority. They just being silent. They don't want to tell that. They came to tell me, yes, but not the authority, not the shame.
Did your father ever hit your mom?
I think so. He did. Yeah. It's very common. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never seen my dad hit anybody ever.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. No, and I guess I always think that, every man has to live up to that icon, What about you, Sandra?
I think it's society. Yeah.
No, my dad never. My dad didn't raise his voice. My dad was the disapproving look kind of person.
Right.
But he didn't. No, he never raised his hand to my mom ever.
Efrat, in your family? Same there. Yeah, I didn't think so. It's interesting. You were talking before, Efrat, about the older establishment, in London that you're working with. But I was wondering, there are some clubs that women weren't allowed to go into, gentlemen's clubs, and not sexy ones, but just I know in Toronto that there were clubs that my dad couldn't go into because of our religion. So are there clubs in England that you can't go into because you're a woman?
That's a good question. I think there are probably a few that kind of on the record, they kind of don't kind of exclude anybody, but they're known as, where men go to smoke and chat, basically.
Right, and do business.
To have meals. and do business.
And do business.
Many business that women couldn't possibly do. They could do much better. But, I mean, it got me thinking about, Frankie, about the establishment and having women as part of the establishment. I've just been kind of, as a part of my thesis, I studied Israel's fourth prime minister, Golda Meir, who was a very, very influential woman, but she was known as a very strong fighter, and she was the head of a strong army. But when you look at her writing, it's very feminine, and on a policy level.
I'm sorry, did you say Golda Meir? Because you cut out there. Is that who you're talking about?
Golda Meir.
Yeah. She's lovely. Yeah.
She was what an inspiration.
Yeah.
When it came to violence against women, kind of the quote that's going around today in International Women's Day is that in Israel, kind of in the 60s, when there was a wave of kind of a series of rapes, the cabinet wanted to establish a curfew for women, and Golda Meir refused to do that and said, it is the men who are attacking the women. If there is a curfew, let the men stay at home.
Awesome. We're going to a break. I got to cut you off here, but perfect.
Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso will continue right after these messages.
Stop.
It's words you never heard.
Did you ever notice you buy more groceries when you use a large shopping cart? The shopping cart, or trolley as it was originally called, was invented in 1937 by Sylvan Goldman, owner of 2 Oklahoma City grocery stores. Back then, shoppers carried their food in wicker baskets. One day, Goldman was observing his customers and realized that as soon as their baskets were full or too heavy on their arm, people stopped shopping. Goldman thought if we could somehow give customers 2 baskets, we could do considerably more business. What's another word for a resourceful person? A debrouillard. Goldman put wheels on some folding chairs, attached 2 baskets to the seat, and let the back of the chair act as a handle so the cart could be pushed with one hand. What do you call anything that can be manipulated with one hand? A thumbadoodle.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Reaching out from the heartland of the United States with quality programming, this is TogiNet Radio.
Secret Cuisines and Sacred Rituals is a quest, a place, and a feast. Join host Vilasi Venkatachalam every week to explore myths, mystique, old medicine, and brilliant modern solutions through a dazzling kaleidoscope of cuisines, cultures, and cures. This is the place where tribes gather, strangers and familiars, to be memory keepers and makers of our evolving, enduring, evergreen, spoken legacy of wisdom and ingenuity. In Veloci's words, when we do old things in new ways and new things in old ways, we paint with an inspired palette, weave our own healing traditions, and become our own guru. Veloci is a troubadour of secret cuisines and sacred rituals. She collects stories of wisdom, ingenuity, and grit. She believes wellness and transformation happen when you stand at the threshold of delight and discovery. She displays her hidden penchant for drama when she leads the Safari at the Supper Club. Her favorite pastime is to extol the marvels of cuisines, cultures, and cures. To her audience in workplaces, seminars, and salons, her mantra is, be your own guru. She is a biochemist, botanist, and alchemist who likes to churn delightful, useful things from a brew of art and science, ancient and evolving, old medicine and new cures. Join Veloci every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here on the Woohoo Radio Network.
If you've been listening, you know how fantastic these women really are. This is a great show, and I'm so thrilled that I am here with Sandra Beck, Efrat Sopher, CieCie Nguyen, and I am your host, Frankie Picasso, and it is Mission Unstoppable International Women's Day edition. So let's talk about education, because one of the things in today's society that women need to help address is the education of women, of girls, because girls are the most undereducated around the world. And we need to make sure that everybody at least gets a high school diploma so that, you know, they can A, go to work, B, make informed decisions and be able to read and know what's going on in the world. Has anybody been involved with girls' education? Any of you?
I have been involved in education in Russia for some girls' homes, and then some educational programs in Thailand for girls exiting the sex trade. And absolutely, education gives you economic power. And I learned that, Frankie, from my mom. My mom was a Ukrainian, came to the United States. She was the product of a single mother. And my mom was instrumental in educating both of her girls at private university while my brothers went to state schools. Wow. And her rationale, and she told me this as a very young woman, I was maybe 8 or 9, and she's like, you know, Sandra, when you grow up and you have a family, you will be responsible for your children. Now, she didn't know that I would be divorced. She didn't know any of this stuff, but she said, you know, the kids stay with the mom, and the moms generally don't leave, but the men can leave. And so she felt very strongly. Both my sister and I we're the highest educated in our family with master's degrees and Ivy League education, versus my brothers, God bless them, went to state schools. Now, that wasn't a barometer of our success, but my mom felt very strongly that if the family were to fall apart, the children would be the primary responsibility of the mother. And if the mother had economic ability, the family would survive. And she was right. She was right. Absolutely. Nothing like education. And in our family, education was the most prized of, events. My mother in her 20s had a master's in economics, and that would have been from, I don't know, I guess in the 40s or something when she did it. I have no idea. Go ahead, Efrat.
I want to echo what Sandra was saying, because my mom is an educator, and she my mom and my dad and kind of the whole family have always been very, very very, very supportive of my education and of having a profession to fall back on, which is why I went to law school. Whereas even if I wouldn't end up using it, to know that it was always there and it's a tool. And I think it's a very important thing, especially in today's society, where so much is about image and so much is about appearances and so much is about status, but in a very kind of superficial way. That it's sending the wrong message to girls. And I think it's I think we're lacking that emphasis on education, especially for girls. And I think that the more, the better. And what I enjoy most is meeting with kind of young ladies who are kind of in higher education and really kind of talking them through the whole process and teaching them kind of lessons that I had to learn on my own so that it would save them some trouble. Because I think that's the foundation. It's education.
Well, and I think that's what we're talking. The whole idea about today is that we are talking about, you know, raising up our girls to be women for tomorrow, and not, you know, tearing them down, but being there for them and being those leaders that we should be and can be for other women. Because, you know, I think it goes back to a lack mentality. When you are afraid to help another woman, you're saying that there's not enough for both of us. Where, you know, and that's not true. I think there's a role for everybody. And, you know, you will get noticed or recognized because of who you are, not, you know, because you're the only one. I think that there's enough for all of us. So it's important to celebrate women's achievement, to help women achieve, to help women get educated.
Can I say something to Frankie?
Yes, please.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the very important role that women are having is being able to have children. We have that power over men because we can reproduce, and that's the first thing that we should be celebrated and feel powerful about. Because without a woman body, even with technology, you still have to have a woman body to reproduce.
Yep. That's true.
I don't know life, and we are able to raise our children up. So I think that is very important role for women to feel proud of and to nurture as well. Not that we are able to go out there, earn a living, being independent, being a woman, a person who lead the whole country or the whole company, but we also have the ability to reproduce, have our children, raise them up, and be a role model. Well, all of that men cannot have. We should be very proud, and I have to emphasize on the ability to be a mother.
Mm-hmm. Did you? I mean, you had boys. If you had a daughter, you had 4 boys, and you know, would you have raised them differently if you had a girl? Like, what would have changed?
What would have changed if I had a girl? Well, I think because having boys only, that I didn't have as much influence on them if I had a girl, because you know, boys, they don't really like to go to their mom shopping when they're about 14. When they're younger, of course. But when they grow up to become 14 in teenager, then of course they stay apart from you, and they want to be more masculine by doing something more masculine, or you know, watching movie that's so violent. I think last week I went to a movie with them, the movie called Logan.
Yes.
Yeah, oh my goodness, so violent. And
I saw it last weekend. I loved it.
That's right. So that's what they do. That's what they do. Men, violent stuff.
But I think I think all kids, when they get to be adolescent, like teenager, like 15, 16, they don't want their moms around. It's embarrassing to have a mother.
I see. So it's very similar. But I sometimes I do wonder how my girl is going to be. But of course, I have no chance. And then I don't know how.
I guess you have daughter-in-laws.
Yeah, but I guess, for men to be a good man out there as well. And for sure that, the world has to have 2 sexes. Without men and without women, nothing can go round. So
it's true.
We have both.
When I was a young girl, the National Organization for Women was huge. I mean, I wore their symbol on my jeans. I remember sewing it on my jeans, and it was like so cool. Today, what are women doing to ensure that equal rights, that women do have equal rights? And, I think that there's a huge difference between equal right and losing your femininity, because I don't want to be the same as a man. I want to have equal rights as a man, but I don't want to be a man. I still want my door open. I still want all the niceties that used to go with being a woman, because I am a woman. I'm not a man. But if I'm doing the same job and I'm smart and I can accomplish, then yes, we should have equal pay. So you guys are younger, Efrat, Sandra, what do you think, or what can you do, or what can you think that we can all do to make sure that this women's rights or equality goes, continues on, so that there is parity?
Well, I think it's about setting expectations. Whenever I go into a project or a company or whatever it is, I expect to be treated equally. I expect to be paid, equally. I set that expectation with everybody around me, and I've been very outspoken about equality and preserving, femininity and masculinity, and preserving those roles that exist for courtship and dating and relationships, outside of the business community. And yes, some of it falls over, but instead of, clamoring for it, I set the bar, I set the expectation. Efrat, what do you think?
I think, yes, it is about, it's about setting expectations and about carrying yourself in a certain way that reinforces those expectations. And at the same time, letting the work speak for itself, so that you change the perceptions that that men and other women have of you, which paves the way for more women to act in this way, so they won't have to do this song and dance again. Sandra we have pictures of Sandra. She's beautiful. She's blonde. Like she said, she's the Barbie, and she's got a drill in her hand, and she can do the same things that men can do, because she's a single mom. She's got it. Who else is going to fix those things around the house if she doesn't do it? So she's got to do it. She can do it. And women can take non-traditional, jobs, and they can do all kinds of wonderful things, and then they can still stay women. But it's important that we set that expectation, set that bar going forward, that people know that we expect to be treated, in the workplace, treated the same as far as wage goes, and
Frankie,
policies go.
When you say things like, who says we can't be beautiful and brainy? I say, you know what? I said it. Efrat said it. Frankie said it. CieCie said it. And if enough of us say it, it becomes so.
Right.
Yes. But actually, I do think that we leave the man chivalry intact.
There you go. I'm going to leave it there, CieCie. Leave their chivalry intact, because we are out of time. Thank you so very much. CieCie Nguyen, Sandra Beck, Efrat Sopher, thank you for joining me today on the special edition, Mission Unstoppable, Be Bold and for Change.
Thank you.
Thanks, you, everybody.
Frankie.
Thank you, Frankie.
Thank you.
Stop.
When the chips were down, they didn't stop. Stories of people who, when the odds were against them, turned defeat into victory. You've been listening to Mission Unstoppable with Coach Frankie Picasso. See you next time, and always remember...
Don't stop.
It's words you never heard.
Gifts may gladden girls, but they seem to